The moment her match was announced, the tickets vanished in just 30 minutes. Thousands were left standing in line, hoping for a chance that never came. And now, the Canadian Open has done something no tournament has ever done before: raised ticket prices because of one player's draw. The fever is real. The demand is unprecedented. And Alex Eala has officially broken the system. The moment her second-round match was announced, the tickets vanished. In just 30 minutes. Not for a Grand Slam champion. Not for a former world number one. For a 21-year-old from Manila who has turned a tennis tournament into a Filipino festival. The National Bank Open in Toronto had never seen anything like it. Tournament director Carl Hale, a man who has orchestrated some of the biggest events in Canadian tennis history, was left stunned by the demand. "We've never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this type of effect," Hale told reporters. "I think her fans were specifically waiting to see when she played." The numbers tell a story of unprecedented demand. Around 3,100 tickets were purchased immediately after Eala's opening match was announced, and by Sunday, every available seat for Wednesday night's session had been sold. But here's what made this even more remarkable. Eala wasn't scheduled to play on the main court. The organizers had initially placed her match on the grandstand, a secondary venue with just 2,800 seats. That decision was quickly overturned. "Our grandstand court is 2,800 seats. We can't put her on there because she probably sold upwards of 5,000 tickets," Hale told the Tennis Channel. The organizers had no choice but to move Eala to center court, the main stadium of SoBi Stadium, which holds 12,500 spectators. This was where the biggest stars played. Iga Swiatek and Aryna Sabalenka had already appeared on that court earlier in the tournament. Now, Eala was being treated like a star the tournament had built its schedule around. The decision was announced just hours before the match. Eala's match was scheduled to follow home favorite Leylah Fernandez's match against Renata Zarazua. It was a prime-time slot reserved for the tournament's biggest draws. Hale acknowledged the historic nature of the sellout, noting that Eala's popularity transcends the traditional tennis audience. "All the tournament directors are talking about it. Everybody in the industry is talking about it," he said. Eala herself was overwhelmed by the reception before she even stepped onto the court. "Yes, I've been told that it's going to be a full house tomorrow. So I'm really very excited to see and experience the atmosphere," Eala said in her pre-tournament press conference. "It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up. It's been a crazy 24 hours, Eala said, describing the whirlwind of winning her first WTA title and immediately transitioning to Toronto. "My mind's just been going back and forth between focusing on the next match and, wow, did I really just do that?" The stage was set, the crowd was coming. And Alex Eala was about to step onto center court in front of a sold-out stadium, something that had only been achieved by one other player in the last 20 years. A player named Serena Williams. The demand was so overwhelming that the Canadian Open organizers had to make a decision they had never made before in tournament history. They raised the ticket prices. For a player ranked outside the top 5, for a 21-year-old making her debut in Toronto, for a woman who had just won her first WTA title less than 48 hours earlier. Carl Hale, the tournament director, had been running the Canadian Open for nearly 2 decades. He had seen the biggest names in tennis history pass through SoBi Stadium: Serena Williams, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic. He had witnessed the farewell tours, the comeback stories, the record-breaking performances. But he had never seen anything quite like this. "We've never seen a player ranked outside the top 5 have this type of effect," Hale told reporters, still processing what was unfolding before his eyes. "She's now 20 in the world. She is really backing it up, and she's growing her fan base." The price hike was a direct response to the unprecedented demand. When it became clear that thousands of fans were still willing to pay whatever it took to see Eala play, organizers made the strategic decision to capitalize on the moment. It was a move that had never been necessary before. Not for any of the big 3, not for any Grand Slam champion, not for any former world number 1. But here's what made the decision even more remarkable. The price hike didn't deter the fans. It didn't reduce the demand. If anything, it confirmed what the organizers already knew. Alex Eala had become the hottest ticket in tennis. The tournament also adapted in other ways. The menu at SoBi Stadium was changed for the first time in tournament history. Traditional Filipino dishes, including chicken adobo, were added to the food offerings specifically for Eala's night session. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the cultural phenomenon unfolding in Toronto. Jason Maglante, Tennis Canada's Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Services and a Torontonian of Filipino heritage, had been watching the phenomenon build for months. To have both of them play on the same night is incredible for the community, he said, referring to Eala's match following home favorite Leylah Fernandez, whose mother is of Filipino descent. I project 8 out of 10 fans could be of Filipino heritage. The price hike phenomenon was just the latest chapter in a story that had been building since January. But the demand didn't stop there. Even with the increased prices, fans continued to line up in thousands, hoping for a chance that had already passed. The tickets were gone. Every single seat for Wednesday night's session had been sold within 30 minutes of Eala's match being announced. Thousands of fans had secured their place in history. But thousands more were left standing in line, hoping for a chance that had already passed. The scenes outside SoBi Stadium were unlike anything the Canadian Open had ever witnessed. Long queues stretched around the venue, with fans arriving hours before the gates opened, desperate to catch a glimpse of the Filipino sensation who had taken the tennis world by storm. Security personnel were overwhelmed, organizers scrambled to manage the crowds, and the demand showed no signs of slowing down. I project 8 out of 10 fans could be of Filipino heritage. Jason Maglante, Tennis Canada's Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Services, told reporters. That's 8,000 people in a 10,000-seat stadium, all united in support of a 21-year-old from Manila who had captured the heart of an entire diaspora. The Greater Toronto Area is home to one of the world's largest Filipino communities. Over 250,000 individuals of Filipino descent across the region. When Eala's match was announced, the community mobilized instantly. Social media channels exploded with excitement. Families planned watch parties. Friends coordinated travel plans. The Filipino consulate and community groups promoted the tournament. And when the tickets went on sale, they disappeared in half an hour. Maglante, a Torontonian of Filipino heritage, watched the phenomenon unfold firsthand. Speaking to my family and friends in the community, people started asking me about her. Is she coming? Can I know a little bit more about her? He said. And these are people who don't even follow tennis. When the National Bank Open announced Eala would play in Toronto, Maglante's phone blew up with messages from friends and family. And then again after she won in Washington. We're pretty proud of anything that comes out of our country in the Philippines, he said. The only thing I know of with this kind of hype among Filipinos in the sports realm would be the boxer Manny Pacquiao. The tournament adapted quickly to accommodate the massive Filipino crowd. Traditional Filipino dishes, including chicken adobo, were added to the food offerings specifically for Eala's night session. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the cultural phenomenon unfolding in Toronto. The scheduling also amplified the excitement. Eala's match was scheduled to follow home favorite Leylah Fernandez's match against Renata Zarazua. Fernandez, whose mother is of Filipino descent, is already popular within the community. Having both players on the same night created a perfect storm of Filipino pride. To have both of them play on the same night is incredible for the community, Maglante said. Eala herself was overwhelmed by the reception before she even stepped onto the court. Yes, I've been told that it's going to be a full house tomorrow. So I'm really very excited to see and experience the atmosphere, Eala said in her pre-tournament press conference. It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up and they're enjoying tennis. Hopefully it will help grow the sport as well, and in the end give them a new experience, a joyful experience. The scene in Toronto was the culmination of a phenomenon that had been building for months. At the Australian Open, thousands of Filipino fans had queued for hours to watch Eala on a small outside court, creating a logjam that organizers had never seen before. Tournament officials were forced to admit they had miscalculated the demand. In Dubai, Jessica Pegula could hear Eala's fans from her hotel room because the courts were so close. In Washington, tournament chairman Mark Ein revealed that 80% of ticket inquiries, if not more, were about Alex Eala. Now, the phenomenon had crossed the border and arrived in Toronto with even greater force. "It's been an amazing 24 hours for me," Eala said, describing the whirlwind of winning her first WTA title and immediately transitioning to Toronto. "So many emotions, so many things to process and processing, also the transition from one tournament to another." The Filipino diaspora had arrived. Thousands were still lining up outside Sobeys Stadium, hoping for a chance that had already passed. And the moment Eala stepped onto center court, the atmosphere would be unlike anything the Canadian Open had ever witnessed. The statistic is so staggering that it has left the tennis world in disbelief. And yet, the numbers don't lie.
According to multiple reports from the National Bank Open in Toronto, the night session featuring Alex Eala's match has sold out completely. Interesting fact.
Wednesday night is sold out in Toronto because of Alexandra Eala. From reliable sources, I can tell you that only Serena has done that in the last 20 years, Tennis Connected reported. Not even Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, or Novak Djokovic have sold out an opening Wednesday night. Incredible. Let that sink in. The three greatest men's players in the history of tennis, with a combined 66 Grand Slam singles titles between them, who have filled stadiums across the globe for 2 decades, could not achieve what Alex Eala has now achieved. In Toronto, at the Canadian Open, the opening Wednesday night session has a reputation for being relatively low-key. It falls on a weekday when people are working. It's early in the tournament. The stars of the draw are spread across multiple courts. And with no roof at Sobeys Stadium, fans often want to avoid the oppressive summer heat. For any player, let alone a 21-year-old outside the top 5, to sell out that session is remarkable. For only Serena Williams to have done it before Eala, that is a statement about the power of a phenomenon that has swept across the tennis world. Serena's farewell tour in Toronto in 2022 was a moment etched in tennis history. When she announced her retirement in a Vogue article, ticket sales for her second-round match boomed, and the stadium packed with 12,500 spectators. The tournament even set up an outdoor viewing area for another 5,000 people who couldn't get in. It was an emotional farewell, a city saying goodbye to a legend. "It was a lot of emotions," Serena said after her match. "Obviously, I love playing here. I've always loved playing here." Now, just 4 years later, a 21-year-old from Manila has matched that feat. Not because she's retiring, not because she's saying goodbye, but because she has become a phenomenon that fans simply cannot miss. The comparison to Serena Williams is not just about ticket sales. It's about what Eala represents. Serena was a pioneer, a black woman who broke barriers in a predominantly white sport, who became a symbol of empowerment and excellence. Eala is also a pioneer, the first Filipino to win a WTA title, the first to break into the top 20, the first Southeast Asian to capture a WTA 500 crown. She carries the hopes of a diaspora that spans the globe. She represents a nation that had never produced a tennis star of this magnitude. "I think it's awesome for the sport," Jessica Pegula said of Eala's popularity. "She's able to draw these crowds, and she's not even a top 5 player yet. I've seen it at all the tournaments we've been at this year. She's usually on a bigger court because they have to put her on a bigger court. Usually you hear the crowd from every single court around her." Tournament director Carl Hale acknowledged the historic nature of the sellout, noting that Eala's popularity transcends the traditional tennis audience. "All the tournament directors are talking about it. Everybody in the industry is talking about it," he said. The comparison to Serena is a reminder that Eala is no longer just a rising star. She has become a phenomenon that the tennis world has never seen before. And the demand shows no signs of slowing down. From Serena Williams to Alex Eala, the comparison is not just about ticket sales. It's about the transformative power of a player who has captured the imagination of millions. And for Eala, it's a reminder that she is no longer just a rising star. She is a phenomenon that the tennis world has never seen before. The fever shows no signs of breaking, and with every passing day, the legend of Alex Eala continues to grow. The Canadian Open organizers had made an unprecedented decision. They raised ticket prices. For a player ranked outside the top 5, for a 21-year-old making her debut in Toronto, and the fans still lined up, thousands of them, hours before the gates opened. Some hoping for last-minute availability, others just wanting to be part of history. This is a phenomenon that has officially crossed borders. What began at the Australian Open with fans queuing for hours to watch Eala on a small outside court has now become a global box office sensation. In Dubai, Jessica Pegula could hear Eala's fans from her hotel room because the courts were so close. In Washington, tournament chairman Mark Ein revealed that 80% of ticket inquiries, if not more, were about Alex Eala. Now, the phenomenon has crossed the border and arrived in Toronto with even greater force. All the tournament directors are talking about it. Everybody in the industry is talking about it. Carl Hale, the tournament director, told reporters. It's a phenomenon that American tennis star turned podcaster Andy Roddick has called Ealamania. Imagine, where you live, whatever the biggest venue you have nearby, organizing parties to watch a fourth-round match of Wimbledon and not having space. Ealamania is fun, Roddick said. She is attracting more tennis fans in a very committed and passionate way. And the numbers back up this claim. Eala's post-match press conference after beating Iga Swiatek at Wimbledon drew 580,000 views on Wimbledon's official YouTube channel, the second most watched video of the entire championships. The highlights of that Swiatek win itself hit 1.2 million views, making it the single most watched video of the whole tournament. Coco Gauff has also weighed in on the phenomenon. Asked about Eala at her press conference before the Canadian Open, the American said, "I think it's so great for the sport and great for all the players. Like, obviously she's the one leading the charge in that region, but I think it opens up new eyes. I think that's just so great that one player can really bridge the gap between like a sport and a nation that maybe hadn't had that representation before. I mean, she's an easy person to be a fan of too." The Canada-based Filipino community has been an especially strong source of support. Jason Maglante, Tennis Canada's Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Services, a Torontonian of Filipino heritage, says the support for Eala has been driven by a massive Filipino diaspora, but also by the vitality of her dramatic wins and charismatic interviews. "I project 8 out of 10 fans could be of Filipino heritage," Maglante told reporters. The tournament has responded accordingly. Traditional Filipino dishes, including chicken adobo, were added to the food offerings specifically for Eala's night session. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the cultural phenomenon unfolding in Toronto. Eala herself remains humble amid the chaos. In her pre-tournament press conference, she spoke with genuine gratitude about what she was about to experience. "Yes, I've been told that it's going to be a full house tomorrow. So I'm really very excited to see and experience the atmosphere," Eala said. "It's nice to see that the Filipino community is really showing up and they're enjoying tennis. Hopefully it will help grow the sport as well and in the end give them something, a new experience and a joyful experience." "It's been a crazy 24 hours, Eala admitted, describing the whirlwind of winning her first WTA title and immediately transitioning to Toronto. "My mind's just been going back and forth between focusing on the next match and, wow, did I really just do that? The fever has been building for months." At the Australian Open, thousands of Filipino fans had queued for hours to watch Eala on a small outside court, creating a logjam that organizers had never seen before. In Dubai, Jessica Pegula could hear Eala's fans from her hotel room. In Washington, tournament chairman Mark Ein revealed that 80% of ticket inquiries, if not more, were about Alex Eala. Now, the phenomenon had crossed the border and arrived in Toronto with even greater force. From Washington to Toronto, from Melbourne to Dubai, the phenomenon has followed, and it shows no signs of slowing down. The question is no longer whether Eala can compete with the best. She has already proven that she can. The question is, how far can she go? The Canadian Open is just the beginning. The US Open looms on the horizon, and Alex Eala is just getting started. What happens when a 21-year-old from Manila, fresh off the biggest victory of her career, faces the world number one for the first time? What happens when a nation of 110 million people, a diaspora that spans the globe, and a sport that has been forever changed by her rise are all watching? And when Alex Eala steps onto the court in Toronto, will she be playing for herself or for the millions who believe in her? One thing is certain, the fever is real. And Alex Eala has officially broken the system. Alex Eala has achieved what only Serena Williams has accomplished in the last 2 decades. Her opening match at the Canadian Open in Toronto has completely sold out, a feat that even Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic never achieved. The phenomenon that began in Australia, grew in Dubai, exploded in Washington, and has now crossed into Canada with the force of a 250,000-strong Filipino diaspora. Ealamania is real. And the world is watching to see what happens next. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the biggest stories in tennis, drama, and emotion every single week. Don't miss what happens next.